The MMA Minute is back with quite possibly the biggest episode to date. UFC 300 is this weekend. Probably the biggest card that we have or will ever cover on this show. And it's all happening this weekend. It seems like we've been waiting for this card for God knows how long. UFC 299 almost seems like it was a lifetime ago. But we've done it. We've gone through the 4 brutal fight nights. And we've made it to UFC 300. Tonight, we have the press conference in about 4 or 5 hours, but we're going to go right in, guys. Starting at the early prelims, 12 champions. I mean, it depends how you want to look at it. A lot of these champions that are marketing as champions, 3 of them are light heavyweight champions between Jamal Hill, Yuri, and Pereira. All 3 of those guys are light heavyweight champions, technically have claim to the belt. So it's cool that they're all on the same card. But yeah, from the first fight of the night, you have 2 former champions in Cody Garbrandt and Deiveson Figueiredo. So right when 6 o'clock hits, everybody's going to be in front of their TVs watching every single fight of the night. So let's get right into it with Cody Garbrandt versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Even though this is the first fight of the night, I think this is going to be one of the hardest fight calls of the night. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt in the bantamweight division. Deiveson coming off that knockout victory, or not a knockout victory, but coming off of a victory against Rob Font where he actually looked really good in his bantamweight division debut. And Cody Garbrandt, obviously former bantamweight division champion, looking to kind of make a name for himself again and start the night off with the KO. I've been racking my brain on this fight a lot, and I don't know. For some reason, I don't think it's going to end up in a finish. I think it's probably going to go the distance. So if you're looking for a prop bet, I'd say this fight ends up going the distance because I thought Deiveson was going to get finished in his last fight against Rob Font, but he showed an impressive ability to kind of hang in there with the heavier weight guys. But then you look back in his fight against Moreno, and he's getting dropped with jabs. So it's kind of tough. Cody's obviously not the same fighter he was when he was the champion. Had a lot of tough fights with Dillashaw. I kind of think Figueiredo's going to squeak out another decision similar to the way he did against Rob Font. That's not saying Cody can't touch him and put him to sleep, but I'm going to go Deiveson Figueiredo getting a decision in the first fight of the night. And then the very next fight, you have Jim Miller versus Bobby Green. Jim Miller, a guy who's fought on UFC 100, 200, and now 300. Kind of want to keep the ball rolling here and say that he's going to get another victory because he won on the first 2, I'm pretty sure. So let's keep the Jim Miller UFC 100, 200, 300 parlay. Let's keep that in there. Bobby Green obviously coming off a very tough loss. I think it was Jalen Turner, I think. Let me check. Yeah, really scary loss to Jalen Turner last. And Jim Miller's having a little bit of a resurgence right now in his career. And obviously, he's going to have that extra push since it's UFC 300 behind him. But I see another decision, honestly. I see Jim Miller getting it done with another decision. So 2 back-to-back decisions to start the card. And then you got another former champion in Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. Who cares? Let's keep it quick. Jessica Andrade. Maybe she'll get a finish, but who knows? Leave this out the parlay. Maybe go get some snacks during that fight. And then we got our boy, Renato Money Moicano versus Jalen Turner. Big upset here, guys. I know everybody's probably thinking Jalen Turner, probably leaning towards him. But in the main event of the early prelims, we're going with friend of the show, Money Moicano.
It's called MMA Minute YouTube channel. Nice, my brother. Good luck on your show. I will watch MMA Minute.
Let's say first finish of the night as well. I know it might be a little crazy of a pick sounding. You guys don't have to throw it in your parlay, but me, I have to. So we're going to say Money Moicano there, getting it done in the early prelim main event against Jalen Turner. And then to start off the prelims, guys, we have another great fight. One that many people might not know. These 2 guys, Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopez. Guys, this is a great fight. Obviously, if it's on UFC 300 and it's ahead of all those other early prelim fights, you know it's going to be a banger. But, I mean, Diego Lopez doesn't have the most extensive kind of track record. His last fights haven't he hasn't fought the highest caliber opponents, but he's finally getting his big break in Sadiq Youssef right here, who's coming off that loss to Barbosa. Guys, I kind of like Lopez in this fight, honestly. I think I'm going to go with Lopez getting probably a finish, actually, against Sadiq. But Sadiq's a great fighter. But for some reason, it's just one of those fights where you have a feeling, and I think Diego Lopez is going to get the finish here. And I think he could be a budding star in the UFC, actually, in the featherweight division. It's a very tough division, but, he's kind of got that little bit of a cult fan base behind him. He's got the emo cut going, but Diego Lopez is a very talented fighter, so I'm going to expect him to get the win here on the first night, or the first fight of the prelims. And then next we have the UFC debut of Kayla Harrison. She's fighting Holly Holm, and the first time in her career, she's going to be cutting to bantamweight, 135 pounds. Obviously, if you guys know Kayla Harrison, she's done most of her damage, or all of her damage, outside of the UFC. She's done PFL, she's done Bellator, and obviously she's I think a 2-time Olympic judo gold medalist. Going up against UFC former champion Holly Holm. We know how she handles judo fighters. If you obviously remember her fight, legendary match against Ronda Rousey. But Kayla Harrison, honestly, guys, I think I've been waiting for Kayla Harrison to join the UFC probably for 4 years. I'm going to say that this is 4 years too late for her. I think that Holly Holm is going to be a really tough matchup for her. I think it might look a lot like that Ronda Rousey fight that Holly Holm had. Now, I know Holly's a lot older too now, and let's see how old Holly is. You know what? I take that back. Now that I looked up their ages, it's kind of a big age difference here. We got Holly Holm, 42 years old, versus the Kayla Harrison, who's 33. Kayla Harrison just looks a lot older than she does. But, I still do think that her coming down to 135, she's lost her last PFL fight. I know she fought that Pacheco girl who she had beat in the past. But, honestly, a part of me feels like her ship has kind of sailed. I didn't know she was only 33. I'm not going to lie. I thought she was a lot older than that. But I do think that Holly Holm just kind of has that edge. She has the experience because she fought the same style fight against Ronda Rousey. And I don't think Kayla Harrison has seen the level of competition that Holly Holm brings outside in like the PFL. She has had some good matchups. Obviously, I think her name's Larissa. Pacheco's a tough girl, but she lost that recent fight. And I think Holly Holm's going to be able to hold her own pretty well in this fight. And then we got the hometown boy, Calvin Kattar, fighting Aljamain Sterling. Aljo making his debut at featherweight. We have a former champion here. Aljo, though, honestly, I don't like him in this fight. I don't know what his plan is. Unless his plan is to go in there and kind of just wrestle with Kattar, I don't think he's going to be able to stand with him. He looks pretty good, though, at 145. I know he was a real big 135-pound guy, but a lot of guys in their first fight in that division up, they don't feel the same. I know Poirier said that when he first moved up to lightweight from featherweight a long time ago. It said it took him a little while to kind of feel like a real lightweight. So I think that might happen here with Aljo. He might not be ready for what Kattar brings. Kattar's stand-up is really, his boxing at least is really sharp. Aljo does bring that funky style, though, with the stand-up. Really kick heavy and just kind of really erratic on the feet. So I could see that possibly presenting problems for Kattar, but I don't know. I think Aljo might have an issue here with that size moving up, but I could be completely wrong. This is one that I would probably leave off the parlay too. But yeah, guys, all these fights on 300 are super good, and it's gonna be a hard call on every single one of them. But I do not think Aljo is going to be able to get the job done here against Kattar. And then we got the prelim main event, Yuri Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic. Another fight that has been years in the making. These guys have been talking probably for about 3 years now, as long as I can remember. I think these guys might have been scheduled to fight once before, but they've had very similar paths on the way to the top. They've kind of rose the light heavyweight ranks together, kind of side by side, just doing their own thing, finishing guys. And now we got Yuri coming off injury and Rakic coming off of a pretty decently long layoff, honestly. I don't think he's fought since... I don't think he fought last year. So, and I think his last fight's a loss, too. So we have both guys coming to prove something. Both guys coming off of losses. I think Rakic might get this done. Surprisingly, actually, they have Yuri as the underdog. But, you know, Yuri's coming off that shoulder injury and that knockout to Pereira, getting knocked out by the smaller guy. He's sloppy on the feet, and he's super, like Aljo, but just kind of to the 10th degree. He's super erratic on the feet where you never know what he's going to throw. Rakic is similar, but he's got the fundamentals down a little bit more. He's more basic, rudimentary striking. And I think that's going to be to his advantage in this fight. And I see Alexander Rakic finishing Yuri Prochazka in the prelim main event. And now finally we make it to the main card, and probably what is the most controversial placement of a fight easily on the whole entire card. Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. I think they said this is the most lopsided odds since like 2005 or maybe even the 90s. Bo Nickel, on the UFC website, they have him at a minus 2100. Wow. I mean, you're dumb if you don't bet on Bo Nickel. You know, if it goes out of the first round, I'd be surprised. Cody Brundage, not much you can say about him. I think he had that slam victory in his last win, but the guy's 10-5. He's been submitted before. He's been finished. And Bo Nickel, they're just feeding Cody Brundage. They're just walking the lamb to slaughter here. Bo Nickel gets the finish. Put the house on it. And then we have Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Guys, this fight has got me kind of scared, but it's got me super hype as well. Arman is a rising contender, and I think he will fight for the belt. The way they both handled Dariush, they both got him out in the first round. I feel like Charles, I think I've talked about Arman on here before, and Arman, he lost to Gamrot in a super close decision, I remember. And then since then, I don't think he's lost, he lost to Islam. He lost to Islam. And I think he also lost to Gamrot as well. Guys, I think Charles is going to get this done. I know they're kind of feeding him to a younger guy who's on a somewhat of a hot streak. He just got that finish, and I'm sure they would love to have Arman, they as in the UFC, would love to have Arman beat Charles and kind of propel off of him in a huge event like this. But I'm telling you guys, you put his back against the wall, UFC 300, Charles gets the job done, finishing Arman Tsarukyan. I could see Arman dropping him, could be like one of those Charles fights that happened a few years ago when he was in his prime, where he'd just be getting dropped, and it doesn't matter. He'll submit you on the ground or he'll get back up and drop you. But yeah, 300. Let's go classic Charles Oliveira performance, getting the job done, finishing Arman Tsarukyan in the first or second round. And then the first, you could call title fight of the night, we have Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway for the BMF belt. Max Holloway moving up for the second time in his career to fight at lightweight. Third attempt, though, if you remember his fight versus Khabib, where he almost died on the scales and they had to cancel the fight. Guys, Max, this is a fight that I have I felt really strongly about, probably of all the fights on the card. I'm hammering Max here, guys. Pause. Oh my, pause. Boys, the Max money line right here. UFC has him at plus 142. I think this is Max's third time. Like I talked about earlier with Aljo, not really feeling like a lightweight or a featherweight when he moves up. I think this is Holloway's third time trying to make lightweight. I think he looks much different now, and I think he's a horrible matchup for Gaethje, honestly. Gaethje has looked great in his last performance against Poirier, but Holloway's never been dropped, guys. I do not see Gaethje dropping him at all. I see Gaethje kind of is that tornado style. Once the fight really gets going, he'll kind of get a little bit sloppy and he'll throw some crazy strikes, where Max is always going to be rooted in that 1-2, those combos striking. His boxing, I think, is much more, I don't want to say it's better than Gaethje's, because Gaethje has some great boxing, but I think when the fight really gets going and it gets into those heated exchanges, I think Max is more likely to stay strict in his striking, whereas you'll see Gaethje kind of maybe throw something wild and off balance, and that might be his downfall, where he isn't really as comfortable, not comfortable, he isn't as good in a firefight as I think Max is going to be. So I see Max dropping him in a similar style that Charles did, with one of those just straight punches, straight shots. I see Max getting the finish pretty easily, honestly. I think he's going to whoop Gaethje. And then I think Gaethje's probably going to retire at UFC 300. It's probably a good place for him to retire, because if he loses to a guy coming up from featherweight, no, I mean, it's Max, it's not just some guy coming up from featherweight, but the path to the title is going to be a lot tougher after that. So we got Max. And then we got the co-main event women's strawweight title bout. Honestly, guys, I don't care too much about this fight either. Whoever you guys think's going to win this one, you can go Zhang, you can go Yan Xiaonan. I'm going to go Weili. Wouldn't be surprised if she lost it. I don't know, and I don't really care about this fight too much. After that, we move on to the main event. Probably, for me, the most anticipated fight of the entire card, guys. And it's Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill for the light heavyweight belt. And I think I've made my decision, gentlemen. This has been a super tough decision to make, and I've rattled my brain all week. Jamal Hill, he tore his Achilles. Alex Pereira, I don't think he looks great in light heavyweight, but he gets the job done every time. We've never seen Jamal Hill really lose. We've never seen him get hurt on the feet, but we've never seen him fight a guy like Alex Pereira. And with that being said, Alex Pereira is going to finish Jamal Hill in the first round of UFC 300's main event. Guys, this was a super tough decision to make. Jamal Hill, like I said, the guy's a killer on the feet. I don't get why the odds, or I get why the odds are close, but I don't get why I feel like the fan base isn't as torn on this as they should be. I feel like a lot of people are saying Jamal Hill's going to get cooked. And if you would have asked me a week ago, I probably would have said that. I've been going back and forth on this fight forever, because I know Alex gets tagged really easily. And I know Jamal's been talking with Izzy a lot. But Alex, he's kind of got the vengeance thing going behind him. He always has kind of just been that guy who has the lore behind him with the whole Izzy thing. And now he's been redeeming Glover at light heavyweight, and this might be the final step, guys. I know Jamal Hill's the man, and I think he's probably the most underrated guy at light heavyweight. I think Jamal Hill beats Yuri. If they fought for the belt, I think Jamal Hill would have beat him if they were to kind of unify that belt, but obviously Pereira went up and ended up winning. But yeah, super tough decision for me to make, but we're going Alex Pereira by KO. So let's cook this parlay up. If we're going to do a UFC 300 parlay, we got to go all in, boys. We have to. I'm not saying that's every card on the night or every fight on the night, but it's going to have to be a lot of them, boys, and we're going to have to cook up something special here. So, you know what? Let's keep us on edge from the first fight of the night. So let's give Davison. It depends. If you want to do props, then do props. Go Davison first round, or Davison. Go Davison getting the victory by decision. Go Jim Miller. Let's leave the chick fight out. Maybe leave Moicano out too, just for, you know what? Nah, it's 300. Let's throw Moicano in. So right now for the parlay, we got Davison, Jim Miller, and then Moicano. And then let's go Lopes. Let's leave Home and Cater off, or Home Yeah, let's leave home and cater off. And then we'll go Rakic, Bo Nickel, Charles, Max, and Pereira. So, boys, this is going to be a long-legged parlay, a third-legged parlay, you could call it. So let's go Alex Pereira, Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira, Bo Nickel, Alexander Rakic, Diego Lopes, Renato Moicano, Jim Miller, and Davison Figueiredo. The biggest, most successful parlay in UFC history and in the MMA minutes history. So yeah, that's it for this episode, guys. See you next time, and let's hope that UFC 300 delivers.
Sipping like do or die, I'm pole pimping. Car stop, rims keep spinning. I'm flipping, drop with invisible tops. Hoes bop with my drop, step out. I'm shaking the block with 418s. Candy green with 11 screens. My gasoline.